it off.
Oh.
It's not working.
But we saved ourselves $10 a month.
So I called the email. Yeah, it should be at the moment.
Streaming.
What is it? The gas line talk directly to the, yeah,
The key thing. Talks to the not talking to the computer.
everything. But so that vehicles are getting so smart that sooner or later there's going to be a country song about a guy whose truck left.
Aaron, do you want to just let people in and then I don't have to say it?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I need to read.
Haven't. No one has.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'll call the public hearing to order. Would you stand for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I ask the clerk to do the roll call, please. Yep.
Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Allen.
Here.
Councilman Patton.
Here.
Smith here. Supervisor Brady.
Here. We have two public hearings on the agenda this evening. The first is for local law A of 2023. This is a replacement of chapter 125 subdivision. It is amendments, but it's being done as a replacement because it is more simplistic to do it that way. I'll walk people through the various changes of it. Many of them are minor wording changes. We are adding a couple definitions for clarity. We are clarifying the definition of minor subdivision, major subdivision, and re-subdivision, in that a minor subdivision will be any subdivision that's creating 4 new lots or less, that doesn't involve common improvements, such as roads, recreational amenities, or other common facilities and utilities. A major subdivision will be any subdivision creating 5 new lots or greater, or any subdivision of any number of lots, which is proposing or will be utilizing common utilities. This is a big clarification for us because sometimes it's been a little confusing. And the re-subdivision is also further being clarified as to how a re-subdivision of lands is being classified. In the past, relatively small subdivisions had to be classified as major subdivisions, and that this problem should be fixed by this. We're also adding some general subdivision standards for things regarding steep slopes, properties that are in wetlands, properties which lie underwater, properties which are in the top 10% of New York State DEC forest, properties that are prime farmland, and properties that could be identified as a town, or that would be identified as a town critical environmental area. The reason for this is in past, sometimes people will create a subdivision and leave a remaining lot that is not buildable. So this will correct that problem. There are some minor changes in the process of applying for applications. Fairly minor informational changes. And really, that is pretty much it. There are some changes proposed in that a subdivision that's proposing community site lighting will have to identify the locations and the types of lighting. This would be more in like a neighborhood type of subdivision, not an individual residential property. And I think that is the bulk of it. So with that, I will open it up to public comment if anyone wishes to speak. Do you have anybody signed up on the list? While she's getting that, I'll just ask, is there anyone who wishes to speak on the subdivision code?
Oh, it's not here.
Not there?
Does anybody have this?
Okay, well, we can start with, we'll start with Mr. Jones.
Oh, that's okay.
Rick Jones. What, and Mike, I just have a question about subdivision and re-subdivision of plans. Because you know, and I know, from the planning board create a lot of confusion. Number 3, there was like 5 or 6 pages in under definitions of this, where it says subdivision and re-subdivision of lands.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yep.
1 and 2 is great. 3, a recent subdivision that does not add new lots shall be classified as a lot line improvement in the planning board review. Every re-subdivision is going to add new lots. If you start with 1 and put a line down the middle of it, you now have 2. So that's an additional lot from the original 1. So this may need some clarification.
Yeah, is the board okay if I answer? So perhaps we could change the word re-subdivision, because this is, what this is trying to clarify is that if it is strictly a lot line improvement, meaning that no new lots are created, that it's land being moved from one lot to another lot. I know in past, sometimes because they were in a property that was previously subdivided, they had to be classified as a major subdivision. What this is stating is that a lot line improvement is a lot line improvement and will never be treated as a major subdivision. So perhaps the word re-subdivision may need to be replaced.
Just clarify the example you gave, some of the land from one to another. That should not be major, it's just a lot line.
It's not a subdivision at all under our code. It is strictly a lot line and lot improvement. And that was why your point is well taken, that perhaps we should reword it a little bit better to clarify.
Because I can see it's still driving it, so. Wasn't gray here. With all
Yep.
that, so-
I think we just need to say that a lot line improvement is not a subdivision. And instead of saying a re-subdivision, because you're correct, a re-subdivision is an action of adding new lots. So it's kind of,
So with that change, that would do it, everything else. Wise.
okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to comment on subdivision law? Okay, if there's no further comments and there's nobody in the public, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing for local law A of 2023. Second,
I'll second.
any discussion?
We have comments on that, so we're from the county.
Oh,
All the other public hearings.
so
were
the
held open.
county comment, the county filed back a no county impact. We have not heard from the county planning board yet. We can still close it, and if they issue any comments, we can
Okay,
choose to act on them or not act on them. What I would like to, well, let's decide first if we're gonna
Okay.
close the public hearing. So we have a motion and a second. And any other questions or discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. What I'm gonna do is make this particular change, which I'm sure our attorney will agree is not a substantial change. I can present that to the board next Thursday's meeting. However, with any change, we can't vote on it that night. We have to wait 8 days excluding Sunday, which is how the law reads, before we can vote on it. So the earliest we could vote on it is the following week. So, but I agree with Mr. Jones that wording can be cleaned up and made better. And we'll see if I know the town planning board is meeting on next Monday, and perhaps they may have some comments. So we can decide at that point if we want to reopen the public hearing, or if we can just accept if they're not substantial changes. We can make any changes like that and move forward. So I don't think the moratorium, the March 4th is the date, so it is not only not likely, it is impossible that we will adopt it before, but we can extend the moratorium, and then as soon as we adopt this, rescind the subdivision portion. So, okay, moving forward next to local law B of 2023. This is to add a zoning chapter 140, section 32.1, section of the code, adult use cannabis retail dispensary and on-site cannabis consumption facility. Let me start by saying that either of these two facilities to operate in the town would need a state permit. At the moment, state permits are tied up in legal battle in the courts. None are being issued. So this is somewhat premature in that, but under the state cannabis law that was adopted in, I believe it was the end of 2020, perhaps 2021, yes. The town had the ability to opt out or opt in. The town chose not to opt, well, we had the ability to opt out. If we did not opt out, we were automatically in. We did not opt out. So because of that, we are required by the state under zoning code to say where these facilities would be allowed. We treated them very similar to the way we treat our adult uses, which we are not allowed to entirely ban in the town of Rochester. Similar to this, we would not be allowed to entirely ban them because we did not opt out. However, we can say where they would occur. So this code does establish that. Let me just sort of go through some of the points of the code before we open the public hearing. So an adult use cannabis retail dispensary is defined as an entity or individual licensed to purchase and deliver cannabis products from cannabis establishments and to deliver, sell, or otherwise transfer cannabis and cannabis products to cannabis establishments and to consumers. So in this case, this is a retail dispensary that is allowed by state permit to sell, but not consumption could not occur. Then there is an adult on-site cannabis consumption facility. That is an entity or individual licensed for the sale and on-site consumption of cannabis products. That would be similar to a tavern or alcohol, where you could come in, you purchase it there, you use it there, and then you leave. The applicability, it is for all structures and uses of retail sales and or consumption lounges where cannabis can be purchased or consumed. It must be established in compliance with this code. It must be in a building regardless of prior site plan approval, and it requires special use permit and site plan approval. It may only occur in the B, which is our business zone, which is along along Route 209. The AB3, which is our agricultural business zone, which are, again, portions along Route 209. And the I industrial zoning district, which are very small districts that are spread in various places in the town. They are limited, though, in that it cannot be within a 500-foot radius from any public or private school, K through 12, any daycare facility or facility where children commonly congregate. It doesn't have to be a building. It could be something like the Little League field on Route 209, for example. The O&W Rail Trail is not included in those restrictions. It also does include daycare centers, youth sports facilities, dance schools, gymnastic schools, and similar types of establishments. It cannot be within 500 feet of any other cannabis establishment. It cannot be within 500 feet of any drug or alcohol facility. It cannot be within 500 feet of any building containing a place of worship. And it must be located in a building, and it cannot be located within a building containing residential units, including transient housing such as motels or dormitories. The hours of use would be from 9 a.m. till 2 a.m. for the cannabis consumption facilities, and from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the retail. And that is the extent of it. Aaron did do a little bit of research, as did I. There are very limited number of properties that would qualify under this code for it to be allowed. I don't know the exact number, but they are primarily all on the 209 corridor where there is larger traffic, with the exception of the places within 500 feet of churches, schools, youth facilities. So my suspicion it is probably less than 15 parcels. That is a very off the top of my head number. I don't have exact, but there is a small number of parcels where this would be allowed. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have a list of people for this one? Okay. Okay, so we're just I'll start and go around the room. We'll start on this side and just work my way across. So if anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand and you can speak on this topic.
I'll speak.
Yes, please.
First of all, I want to say I never in my life thought I'd be here instead of meeting. My first thing I have to say. I think that I'd like to see our town treat this pretty much the same as bars. So the only thing that I find really don't like that is the places where you imbibe be open at 9 in the morning to 2 in the morning. That's a concern. I think that if the rest of that is really well cared for, it's in the state, there's not much for it, but, and I'm okay with that. But I just think that we need to be careful. And I would love to see if there was any way in those stores they could restrict the products, but I guess I can't do that. Like I know in Washington State, there's soda, and there's, there's some things that I think are just so much for children, and, Coke is it's like candy cigarettes. Same sort of thing. So I don't know if we can do anything about that now, but those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Well, I'm going to share a comment about the New York State regulations. So they don't allow other products to be sold in the dispensary. And they also have very strict anti-child friendly packaging. I mean, it's almost draconian what's in there, but there's there are very strict things that don't allow the stuff you see in the dispensary, the illegal dispensary. They violate every rule. The Doritos, something else that sounds like it's something else that will look like Doritos and it won't, that'll be something that will get that hot.
They literally copied the packaging that looks exactly like Doritos and a few other brands
so,
that they showed on NBC.
but-
We can just, we'll keep one comment at first time, and then we can certainly come to you in a moment.
But no, I mean, I think if you look at the underlying statutes, but in the state rules, that I don't think the officials are, if it's a legal dispensary, it should be.
Thank you. Ma'am, did you want to add anything?
I was just following because we're.
That's quite all right.
And I've seen NBC, they've covered several stories. They're worried about anything from even CBD or marijuana or anything that looks similar to any other thing that could affect children's health that's being copied by people. There's 3 different brands they showed. One was Cheetos, one was Doritos, and then they exactly copied. I've grown up in advertising my whole life on every side. I've never seen anything that was done like this so perfectly. It was wild. And I work a lot with NBC, so it's just, and it is a huge concern and they have addressed it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rick Jones. I'm fine with the retail sales. I'm not crazy about making the retail sales spots also places of consumption at all.
Just to clarify, they can't be both. You can be one or the other. You can't be both. So it is very clear that you can do one or the other.
Bars for consumption at any time for any time, the sale. And I'm assuming, I know, I'll be a bit, well, perhaps you can comment what the lady and gentleman brought up in terms of packaging. Those packaging rules are part of the state law, which they have to subscribe to anyway, correct?
Correct.
So you're just talking about the where, the what and the where. So to clarify that, I'm against the assumption. And if you do get to the point of whatever changes you make, and you can identify the sites, we make it a lot easier for the planning board on a selfish basis to make it easier for us to consider. Here's where you can have it, and anything else comes in. The building inspector would not honor it, we wouldn't have to go through any debates, it's just, here's the sites that's in third and place. That'd be helpful. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jay Martin, and I, for one, am opposed to local law B 2023 for many reasons. And any plan, any law, no matter how well thought out, always has unintended consequences. And you as a town board prepared to meet these unintended consequences. I happen to have a United States Coast Guard license. I must submit to a random drug test. And should I fail, I lose my license. Anybody who has a CDL has a random drug test. Bus drivers, school bus drivers, your county truck drivers, your local truck drivers, your state truck drivers, your police and enforcement agencies, sheriff, police, whatever, emergency vehicle drivers. So it's going to be very interesting to see who the population is that might be using this facility. As far as consumption, health, we might as well open up a brothel or an opium den and or casino gambling. Let's let everybody get in on it. I just think that we have taken a step downward in our culture, in our beliefs. I, for one, have taught in the Rondout Valley School District for more than 3 decades. I've seen kids come in stoned. They look like sleeping Jesus as they put their head down on the desk. Presently in this population of Rochester, there are parents who permit parties in their houses and have underage drinking. You don't think that's going to happen with cannabis? I think it's going to. Many years ago, there was a brilliant young lady named Sherry Dankinson, who in a moment of indiscretion after some partying, dove into the shallow end of the pool. To this day, she's a quadriplegic. Unintended consequences. I think we have to be very careful of this. I would bypass any tax revenue that might be blinded by this. I think we're heading in the wrong direction. And I would hate to see this, on 209, fine, so you come out high and you get into an accident. And everybody's car insurance prices and premiums go up because that is judged by regional accidents. So I think we're going in the wrong direction. I think, people who must resort to this to get some kind of light. This is a mind-altering drug, no matter how mild, it nonetheless is. And unlike having a drink of wine or supper, your sole intention is not to get drunk. Your sole intention and objective is to relax to the point where your mind has been altered from the other things. So I am opposed to this. I hope that the board will do the right thing for the town of Rochester. Let's step up a level or two from this. Thank you.
That's right.
I would just like to say what the gentleman just said, it's a moot point at this point. Because this is, I believe, the first time this discussion, and it's already law.
Laws can be repealed
Well, okay.
and or amended.
What is the tax revenue? For the town?
I'll be honest, I don't know. It is, I have no idea. It is a percentage, that is paid, to the town. Bear,
8% sales tax.
bear in mind though, this is about the legislation as was stated about the location, how it can operate, the where, when, and how it can operate. The state has already decided that this is allowed. We did choose not to opt out, as did many other towns in the state. And so this law is to say where, when, and how. So that's what this law is for. Yes.
Everyone thinks it's just like anything else. If you don't want to go to a bar, don't go to a bar. If you don't want to watch this on TV, don't watch it on TV. But I think it gives people with maybe terminal cancer, a little hope, to have, get an appetite back, or maybe give them a little bit longer, let them be a little bit more comfortable in life at the end of their life. I don't partake myself. I'm a commissioner in the fire department, and I have a CEO. Well, I don't want to smoke weed. I'm not going to smoke weed. And there's not going to be a cloud of weed smoke going down through the air. So I think it's a moot point as far as if people want to do what they want to do, their option. Let them do it. If they don't want to do it, don't do it. But I think there's a lot of like cancer patients, people with terminal illnesses that this will benefit. And I think that's the whole and the thing we should be looking at. It ain't all about just getting high, it's about benefits. So I think it's a good thing.
Let me just see if anyone else wants to speak first. Yes.
Alex, new to this community here, I kind of agree with you in terms of, I want to do it, no matter how, you'll be able to do it. I come from a country, Singapore. People get spanked, pain, with the slightest thing, right? You know about, say, chewing gum, not like chewing gum. I'm sure you've seen that. If you ever step onto a plane to first thing, if you ever get caught in drug capital punishment, you step on the plane, it's announced again. Before you step out, it's announced again. Before you step into custom, it's announced again. So you do it. You want to make it so hard for people to do it? Sure. How about the drugs which are available? No worries, you create synthetic drugs. If you want a society where people create something worse than that, versus something which is a little bit more pure, where, yes, agree, there are going to be some issues here and there. We talk about drugs, we all need drugs. When we're sick, we get drugs, right? I'm pretty sure, unless someone basically say, I don't want anything more. We all need drugs. The issue is drug abuse. It's not the drug itself, it's a piece of drug. Where the issues is basically, look, people who are in need of something, just a little bit of relief. If they don't have the option, guess what? They look for the option. They cannot get it here, they go to the town and get it. So I don't understand why people like, Let's stop everything. I'm sure you've been to Orlando. Happy medium in terms of the speed. The kids go there. Step of that, you go to Tampa, adult entertainment, next to everything within that. There are options. So I'm saying is like, the rule of law itself is that it's there, great. I like the idea that Rick brought up in terms of the planning board, there's some sort of enforcement. But I think if you walk around, drive around, let's be honest. Rules are there, how is it enforced? I don't know. But again, society is such that you help to self-regulate. That's why we have schools. Right? Hopefully the schools do the right thing, educate, teach the right thing. It's drugs today. You talk about guns. How deep is that? That's my point.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Allison. There's the two, what we're discussing here, just to clarify, the local law A subdivision and local law B, the use of the retail dispensary are we just one or the other or both?
No, these are
Like,
two
what is-
separate public hearings.
Oh, they
So the
are.
first one was on our subdivision code, which we've heard from one person and closed that. So this is a second public hearing
So
that
there's
is
a-
being held to add this code to our zoning code.
Gotcha.
And as I stated earlier, this is because New York State allows it, but under what's called home rule, each community gets to decide where and when it can operate. Not so much the how is pretty much decided by the state. Public hearing that is being held to add. Can you please mute yourself? Thank you. This would being added to our zoning code, which covers land use. And as part of our zoning code, land use dictates the where things can happen.
So the individual, pot bars, is already in effect? That's already, so that's
Well,
already in it.
so to
That's
clarify,
been decided.
Clarify, it is not, because it is in effect in New York State, except it was being done regionally. The Mid-Hudson region, you may have seen in the newspapers, is tied up in court cases over the how. New York State is being challenged in the process by a company that wants to open
Mhm.
these. And while that is tied up in court, no permits are being issued. So right now, currently, a place could not open up in the town of Rochester. What this is to allow to say when and if a town of Rochester or a person gets a permit and decides they want to operate in the town of Rochester, this will say where it can operate and the times it can operate, and a little bit in the how, in that it must be inside a building, the rules
Sort of
of,
the list that you gave earlier.
correct,
500 feet from whatever.
correct.
Even like the bars, the same applies
Very similar
to the
to,
farms and the bars.
correct, and this is very similar to alcohol, which is governed by the New York State Liquor Authority. Towns under those, we can't change, say, for example, the closing time of bars in the town of Rochester. The county has that ability to, the town does not. So that's an example of a similar type of thing. But in this, New York State has said, last year they gave the towns, every municipality had the option to opt out by a certain date. This board discussed it, decided not to opt out. So now the next step is to say where it can be allowed within the town, if it were to occur.
If I might ask, what was the impetus to allow it? What was the main Is that a good
Um,
question to ask?
I can't answer for the rest of the board, and actually,
Is it tax rate?
let's, if we can get all the comments, and then we can answer questions. So,
Is there
yeah, let me just see if
anything-
does anyone else want to speak who hasn't spoken yet? Manuel, and then we'll come back to you.
Question regarding that, so in terms of hours of operation, you cannot change, the boss cannot change?
No, in this case, and maybe that was a bad example, we can set the hours of operation.
If you have
I
a
think
comment on
on
that,
that-
yeah, the 3 a.m.
If you have a comment on that, that would be relevant to this hearing.
Yeah, I was wondering about it, also about the 500 feet standard, or you can change it to a little more.
We can go higher, so the answer is we can go higher, but not
Higher.
lower. So meaning we
You
can,
go higher.
we can raise it from 500 feet. Yes,
12, 15 places,
yes.
maybe you can reduce it to 500 or something like that, you can make at least 1,000 feet. And also regarding the hours of, especially the one open till 2 a.m. It sounds unreal for me in the town of Rochester.
So I'm
Yes.
gonna comment on your comment. Do you know that the gun laws in the state of New York? and
So
in our
if I
area,
can stop you, it's, no,
500 feet, people can shoot beyond that from your property.
just ma'am, if I can stop you for a moment. So just please hear me out. You have to direct your comments to the board, not
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
the people. Yeah.
I'm just correcting, or actually saying, I don't know how many know that, my house was grazed by a gunshot on the logs years ago, and it was not 500 feet away, it was across the river. And the other thing I was gonna say is, there are plenty of people that are doing black market. I'm sure we all know these people that are called Legacy. They have been underground, they've been selling products for years. And I'm not a partaker, I don't know anything about who sells or what they do, because I've not been a partaker. I've traveled the world in a very famous business, and I did not take anything. I get contact high when I walk outside and somebody's puffing in my face. But there are plenty of people doing these legacy things that you can see all over. Part of the reason I believe that New York State has clarified it and allowed it is because they're trying to regulate it so that people get what someone said here, a good product. They're not getting product that's full of heavy metals or contaminated things that people use to, what do you call it, fertilize, or just not even knowing what they're doing. You're trying to regulate certain steps along the way so that it is actually a better product if people want to partake. So that's just the point that I wanted to make, because it's been an underground thing, they call it legacy or whatever, but this way there's a way of kind of controlling and understanding what's going on and where. I know the police have not been so happy about it because they're trying to figure out testing. It is declared a DUI, driving under influence, by the law of, I think that's probably a federal or a state. I'm not sure, but it is, it's state. Well, it's federally illegal, yes, it's state by state, but that is declared a DUI, so people should be careful of that.
Okay.
That was my comment.
Do you have another comment, and then we'll come to you?
Do we have the ability in the town to say we're okay with dispensaries, but we don't want the bar? Because to me, a dispensary, you get it, you go home, and that's fine, but you go out and you're on the road and you're, and they have really strong stuff. And people who've never done it go in, that's a real concern for me.
That's fine.
I would like to say, first of all, when the towns could discuss it, the town of Warsing made one decision, I'm not sure which one it was, the village of Ellenville made another decision, have one and not the other. So yes, that's a possibility. It's a fact for here now. If and when somebody applies for a license, I would hope that we can have discussion, or the public can kind of know, have a discussion and be told where it's going to be similar to this kind of situation. Okay? When in fact somebody does apply for a license.
and I don't know if this is true or not, but under the state liquor authority, when somebody applies for a license, the town clerk is notified, I believe, and there is a 30-day period of notification. So I'm anticipating, I don't know 100%, but I anticipate that it would be a very similar type of notification system. So certainly your comment is
Even if it's not allowed, then let us be known then. Okay,
under the zoning code, if it's not allowed in that property, then somebody can get a permit without a property, and then the requirement is you have to have the permit in order to apply to do it on a property. If you don't have the permit, that's the first question that will be asked. If you don't have a state permit, you can't pursue a zoning designation in the town of Rochester. So without that, so you need that first. And certainly we can explore limiting some of the properties a little more. I will say there's very significant case law under adult uses. You can't regulate it to the point that it becomes almost impossible to do in your community. You do have to, and I use adult use as an example because it's very similar type of legislation. You can't rule it totally out of your town. You must allow it somewhere, but you can limit how where it can operate. This would be similar, but if you rule it to too small a number of parcels, you probably could get sued over discrimination. So it's a fine line, but everybody's point is valid. So anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Just to talk more about, I forgot your name, but she was asking a direct question. If you guys have the ability, the board has the ability to say no to the pot bars and okay to the dispensaries.
At this point, we do not. That would have been done in the opting out. We could have opted out of one or the other or both. We opted into both. We discussed it. Speaking for myself, we viewed it as very similar. The sale is similar to a convenience store that sells alcohol versus the service area like a restaurant or a bar that is allowed in. And when we set the 2 a.m., we discussed that in this county, you can legally be open until 4 a.m. for alcohol. I know in our town, we do not have any facilities that I believe that do open that period of time right now, but they could. And the town could do nothing about it. So I will say that was the reasoning in my mind, and perhaps another board member may want to weigh in of why we set it for the 2 a.m. So does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Mr. Dunning.
Two quick things. I mean, the person that applies for a special use permit, that they use it on site, I wouldn't want to be that person because, like you're saying, the liability of people smoking there and leaving is going to be very high. And I don't think it's a very good business decision to do. Second thing is, to this nice woman, to her point, the state cannabis industry is a highly regulated industry. They have cameras on every single plant. Each plant has basically a social security number that goes with the life of that plant until it's harvested. So it is very, very, very regulated. So the fact that they can keep an eye on it and they can regulate the potency of it, as compared to just going and buying it down the street off your buddy, it's a bonus that they know exactly what it is, where it came from, and they see the whole plant.
We have someone on the phone.
Okay. Person on the phone, if you would like to unmute and speak.
*6.
Yeah, press *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm calling in as a farmer, and I am working in conjunction with a grower who currently has a conditional recreational grower's license. And that person was in Marbletown at the moment, and we are looking to buy a property that would be in your town, in fact, to run a potential micro business when in the future they are growers and others who have current licenses within the state will be able to become a micro business, which will be pretty limited in the amount they're able to grow, but it gives a farmer the ability to control from essentially top to bottom their process of growing and selling, where right now, the way the state has this system set up, it's all going through, they have to wholesale their product out, or they have to use a processor to then turn their product into something else, and then they take a cut, and then they sell to the dispensaries. So in switching over to a micro business, it allows a farmer to actually control more of a business entity and thereby hopefully remain viable in this industry. And beyond that, I mean, the real reason I'm calling in is, you know, according to what you guys have written here in your proposed, I guess it's a law then, is about the housing, having any kind of housing in a similar building. The dispensary aspect would have to be under lockdown by very strict state laws, with cameras and all kinds of security systems set up there. So when we're looking around our particular region and looking at the lack of housing for people, and especially farm workers, our look at this is that if we go through with this and are able to put up the building to do this process, that we would also be very interested in the ability to have housing for the people that would be working with us. When you bring in foreign workers in agriculture, it's one of the requirements is to have housing. It's very expensive, very difficult to find, especially as a seasonal worker, and of things where, you know, people are here for 6-8 months. Trying to rent anything for that is a near impossibility. So I'm just asking that you guys kind of look at that part of what you're legislating. When we look around the state at where other dispensaries are, well, there's, I mean, very few open at the moment, but anything in a bigger town or city is in a building that essentially has residential units above it, or attached to it in some way. So I'm wondering if this is actually a necessary limitation. And I guess that's the extent of my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, would you mind telling us your name? You're not required to, but if you would.
Oh, sure. My name is Kira.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see if there's any more comment, and Kara, if you'll stay on, I can answer some of your questions. But let me just see if there's anyone else who wishes to speak.
I'm gonna mute you, Kira.
Okay, so Kira, what you bring up is under ag and markets law in the farming end. This legislation would only involve the retail sale or the consumption on site. So what you're talking about in terms of the growing is not addressed under this law, nor is it regulated by this law. The second part of your comments about the agricultural housing, the town does allow farm worker housing, and we actually consider that in our town code as an associated use or an ancillary use to agriculture. So it is a much simpler approval process for it. We do encourage it, actually. That also would not be addressed in this law in any way, shape, or form. So what you were speaking to, and I'm guessing based on your comments, I don't know if the farmer can sell directly to consumers or not under the new code. I'm not aware that they can, but I'm also not aware that they can't. So perhaps you know different, but as far as I know, you can only sell through a dispensary. So I don't believe that this law would affect a farm operation in any way. Aaron, do you know anything more about that?
I don't. I also thought that maybe Kira was talking about wanting to have a local dispensary associated with a local farm. So in that case, it might apply, but it's definitely something we should look into.
Yeah.
Because I think it's possible in our region that would be something that people would like to.
My suspicion is that would be covered under ag and markets law, which is working very hard on this. type of agricultural operation. So we'll get clarification on that though for you. Yes, sir.
Would you like, I can give you a little bit, I know it's.
I'm happy to hear it if you.
So this is a proposed regulation on the state level. It was proposed in like November. And it would allow the licensing of micro business that would be limited in scale. They can only be so big. But they would have the ability to grow, process and sell. Sort of like, there's the farm stand. That sort of thing on sort of like a micro family business type of thing. Now, having said that, they haven't said anything about where they can be, and they haven't addressed any of those other zoning issues that would tie in here. And just because someone's got farmland, you know, do you want them to have that cannabis farm stand in front of the farm? I mean, that's something that you'll probably have to deal with down the road. But that's the concept that she's referring to.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, if not, I'm going to ask the board that we hold this public hearing open to a date to be determined, which means we're going to take this information we've received tonight, study it, and then we will set a follow-up public hearing before anything is considered with adoption. So we thank you all for your turnout tonight. This is why we do these things. We appreciate your comments very much. So with that, I'll ask the board for a motion to hold the public hearing open at a date to be determined.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can I just clarify too?
Sure.
If other people have comments, you can still submit those
Yes.
comments to the town clerk. You can get her information on the website. So in keeping the public hearing open, you can continue to respond. If you think of something as you're driving home, you can still provide that feedback.
And anybody who wishes to submit written comments based on what you said this evening, it is being recorded. The clerk is taking minutes. It is not recorded verbatim. Obviously, it is on the tape. So, but if you care to elaborate further in written comments, please send them to either the clerk's office, drop them off, however you prefer. But thank you very much. We realize it's an important topic to people, and we want to be sure we get it right for our community. So thank you very much.
We need to vote. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask for a motion that we close the public hearing portion of the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Do I
second.
have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained. Okay. For the board, we were scheduled to go in executive session at 7, but we have our person here that we're going to speak with. So I'd ask for then a motion. The resolution A, we do not need tonight, so we will be removing that from the agenda. So I'm going to ask for a motion that the town clerk motions to enter into executive session at 6:55
I'll make that motion.
PM for the purpose of interviews of particular individuals for the planning board chair position.
I'll make it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay, so we'll end the meeting.
Because we're not.